So the National Education Policy 2020 recognized the need for early childhood learning probably for the first time in essence. It spoke about the continuum of learning in the foundational years of 3 to 8. Of course, there is a lot of evidence on learning outcomes of primary school students. Asar has done a fantastic job. Thank you to the team at the back there. But it does paint a very difficult picture of cognitive skills, literacy skills, numeracy skills today, which just emphasizes the need for foundational learning, even earlier than we initially did. The NEP's focus on universal preschool education is consistent with the global recognition and research talking about the need for learning in the earliest years, something which will get them ready for school and for life. However, regulation in India today, for early childhood education does not neatly fit into one agency or ministry mandate. Education is a state subject, while ICDS is a centrally sponsored scheme, designed by the center and implemented by the state, of course. So the roles of different stakeholders can often blur. I think what we need to delve deeper into is what kind of policies work, what kind of models have we seen work really efficiently. So today we will focus on three key topics. What models of collaboration have we seen work very efficiently? What are the key structural issues that limit interministerial convergence today on the delivery of quality ECCE, and how can they be addressed? And what are some of the areas of convergence between WCD's Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi program and the Ministry of Education's Nipun Bharat program? We need to keep in mind that the total number of students enrolled in pre-primary schools today amount to close to 1 crore, about 95 lakhs. And the number of children enrolled in Anganwadis today are close to 4.3 crores. Therefore, one could argue that there is a strong case to be made for improving the existing system that there is today. So we would really want to understand how we can improve the system and convergence. I think there is immense experience that all three of you bring. So I will first start, Dr. Sanwal, with you. I would love to understand from your experience as the head of NCERT, how can, in your mind, how can the Ministry of WCD really reform its pre-primary curriculum to transform Anganwadis into an integral component in the continuum of foundational education that we discussed and that the NEP talks about?
Thank you, and thank you to Rocket Learning, and good morning to all of you here. So I think there are 2-3 things that we know that ICDS has been in existence for many decades now. And I think every state has its own contextualized curriculum. So I think what just needs to be done, that after the Nipun Bharat and after the NCFFS, we have the government of India has come out with the learning outcomes. Now the learning outcomes are something that don't really focus on learning of alphabets. They are age appropriate. They focus more on developing the foundational skills, like more focus on oral language development, more focus on, through play, through stories, developing the cognitive skills like matching, sorting, seriation, classification, which actually are the foundation for future learning. So the focus, so once you align your curriculum with the learning outcomes, I think it leads to more age-appropriate pedagogies or age-appropriate expectation from a child. And what the researchers are telling us is that there is a downward extension of primary schools into the preschool. So I think if we align the contextualized state curriculum to the learning outcomes, I think that is where the the convergence has to happen, and that is where it takes care of the age-appropriate curriculum as such. But then with that comes the training of Anganwadi workers. And so we are a part of MWCD task force and also the Ministry of Education task force. So we are saying that we have a rich, the Department of Education has a rich infrastructure of diets, SCRTs. So all of those could be utilized to train the Anganwadis of particular states. So convergence has to happen between the two departments, the two ministries actually. And if we join hands, I think, bringing out a change becomes very easy. But how can that be done? I don't really have an answer for it.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Patnaik, the natural next question is for you. Ma'am, given what, given the contextual curriculum that has been sort of developed across many of the states that ma'am just mentioned, the play-based curriculum, I'll also just touch upon the national ECCE task force that was constituted earlier, and by the MWCD, and it paved the way for developing framework or a curriculum framework for 3 to 6 year old children. Ma'am, given the capacity building also that ma'am was talking about, and everything, the diets, and ma'am also touched upon the Anganwadi workers. Ma'am, how has NIPSED incorporated the latest research on ECCE, some of the best practices that we see nationally and internationally, and inputs also of, ma'am, there are a lot of Anganwadi workers here, so also the inputs of the Anganwadi workers, how have they been incorporated into some of the curriculum design that NIPSED has done?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to congratulate Rocket Learning team for their great efforts for promoting ECCE in the country. NIPSED, National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, I am proud to be a part of it. Why? Because we have been training ICDS functionaries since 1975. So understanding ICDS completely thoroughly, I think we are the backbone for training of ICDS functionaries since 1975. We conduct job training courses, we conduct refresher courses, many kind of orientation courses, and all these courses focus, one of the most important points is ECCE. Right? In the last 1 or 2 years, we have conducted nearly 250 programs, basically for including job training courses, and that on promoting early childhood care and education. So for this, one of the strongest of the point what we have with us is that we, in all our training programs, we have a backup of the feedback from the participants. The feedback of nearly 1 lakh participants from whom we have gathered various points regarding the need for strengthening ECCE in the country. Why? Because much has been focused on supplementary nutrition. When we talk of supplementary nutrition, THR and other things, that is being, lot is being talked upon. But for the past 2 to 3 years, I think so, this has really become a movement, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And ECCE is talked upon in a very big way. And I think so one of the most important points is that when we talk about 0 to 6 years, it is not only the 4 hours curriculum which is going to be helpful. It is exactly for a child, learning is not only at the Anganwadi center, but it is entirely the 24 hours. And exactly, how to utilize his time. If we could conduct a Jan Andolan, where we could actually train these children, or we could train the parents regarding the importance of 0 to 6 years, that each and every moment what they spend with the time is a learning for them. It need not be educating them, but at the home, with the Dadi, Nani, anybody could be a source of education for these children. So next step, I think so for ECCE is that, first of all, it's that good that we have a curriculum with us, but apart from the curriculum, it has to go far ahead towards the community and educating the parents. And coming to Ministry of Women and Child Development, 2013 National ECCE policy, we had a framework in place. We had distributed the worksheets across the country. But as ma'am said, with NEP 2020, NCFFS, all these things in place, somewhere down the lane, I think so we have to revise the curriculum based on the latest needs, based on the latest requirements. And for this, we had constituted a task force in 2022. And one of the major recommendations of the task force was that we incorporate all the salient points of national education policy. We make it a play-based method to pedagogy method so that children are well aware of the facts. And with the NCFFS, we have got Unmukh, we have got Vidya Pravesh, and all these modules, which was very helpful for us for paving of the new curriculum, which is still, it's not out, but we are working for it. NIPSIT is working for it with various partners with us. And we had constituted an internal committee also. And in the internal committee, we had people from education, from health, from UNICEF, we had from civil society organizations, so that we have a complete idea of how to collate the material. And since already states have started their ECCE curriculum, many of them have even incorporated NEP 2020 and other points. But it is very important that from Ministry of Women and Child Development, we give a centralized guidelines to the states so that a center, from the central level, a common guidelines is issued to all of them. All of you will agree with me that whatever training you give, it all depends on the trainer. The same material can be transacted in very different ways through different people. So one of the most important point of national education policy is to bring up that passion in that Anganwadi worker, how to deliver ECCE material. Everyone has, right? Everyone has ample material in the Anganwadi center. But I think so with the new national curriculum framework and ECCE 3 to 6, 0 to 3, we are now thinking of reigniting the need for importance of ECCE in 0 to 6 years. 0 to 3 years, it could be a stimulation framework, and for 3 to 6 years, it could be a curriculum framework. And I think so all the stakeholders are very, very important. It is not the job of one ministry. It is the job of one and all, including parents and the community, the need to highlight the importance that 0 to 6 years, where the child brain is a completely free slate, or it's a slate where you can write a story upon. And every stakeholder is important, so that memories are so beautiful that actually you go on building upon a story which the child will remember lifelong. And ministry is doing a lot of efforts, and coming to the main stakeholders, that is the Anganwadi workers or the ICDS functionaries, we are grateful that we are having continuous programs with them. And we had recently one of the programs for Anganwadi workers in Delhi, where we had emphasized the importance, one of the programs which we will be talking about, Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi. And in that we got an opportunity to understand their needs. I think so training need assessment is the key to understand even ECCE better, because every state has different requirements, every individual has different requirements. So training need assessment which has to be done, and NIPSIT is doing it in the forefront through its training programs. And all the Anganwadi workers, what they felt was that, Madam curriculum banaiye par hame na text mat dijiye. We don't have the time, to go for reading text and then, in doing it, going for sessions or anything. हमारे लिए curriculum ऐसी होनी चाहिए कि वीडियो के थ्रू होनी चाहिए, या फिर कॉमन बहुत ही इजी मेथड से होने चाहिए कि खेल खेल के माध्यम से हम बच्चों को पढ़ा पाए. And one more thing what they said was time management in the Anganwadi centers, where 4 hours ECC curriculum की जब हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, how does she manage the time in the Anganwadi center? Sitting here and talking is very easy, but going to an Anganwadi center where Anganwadi दीदी जितने भी मेरे साथ बैठे हुए हैं, पहले तो इनके लिए बहुत बड़े तालियां होनी चाहिए, because we talk here, but they are the one who are actually implementing. वहीं एक with so many children around and so many different wants. It's not one services, but 6 services which ICDS offers, and everything happening in the same time. How does she manage it? And I think so one of the most important person who can help her is your Anganwadi helper. So even in ECCE, when the Anganwadi Didi is offering ECCE, I think so that Anganwadi worker helper training is also very important, where she can engage other children, We can have a group of 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and the time management and how do you divide that same activity into various children. When we talk of learning outcomes, I think so all these points are very, very important, which has to be taken into consideration. So NIPSID is trying its level best, collating information from international, national, also collating best practices across the states, because we have our 5 regional centers across the country. So we have a pan-India reach. So we are trying to collate, and for that case, even on indigenous toys and other things, we are having ample of information with us, and partnering with all of you, I feel very great to be a part of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think both of you make several important points, and I'll just pick up on a few and direct it to Mr. Kundu, because we all know that while we are sitting here and a lot of policy making happens, but ultimately everything happens at the state level. So Mr. Kundu, I would love to understand. You've had experience across multiple states. You passionately believe in learning of children at the earliest years. So one, we would love to understand what you think and why you think it's so important for children to learn in the earliest years. And two, in terms of what both both doctors have said right now, what do you think in terms of from a Punjab perspective? How are you looking at convergence, and how are you looking at learning for our youngest children in with the education department and WCD working together?
Too many questions. But first thing first, it doesn't matter what I think about why learning in the earlier matters. The empirical and the scientific evidence speaks for itself. And if I don't believe in it, I'm just being unscientific and being stupid. So once I get past that there is empirical evidence, there is scientific evidence that the earlier matters, the question is what to do and how, and what is enabling environment we build for that to happen. So I've skipped past one of the questions right away. I think 2 things or 3 things are important. And let me, I agree with Dr. Suniti mostly, and let me differ on just one point. Anganwadis or ECCE for that matter, or preschool for that matter, must not be downward extension of school. Because let me define some salient features of our schooling system. The moment we say downward extension, it means those salient features also get extended downward. एक syllabus होगा, एक syllabus पूरा करने की होड़ होगी, regardless of the learning happening. The teaching will happen, but there will be dichotomy between teaching and learning. And then the entire system will say, हमने तो पढ़ाया है, यही नहीं सीखते, पता नहीं क्यों नहीं सीखते. So एक syllabus होगा, एक syllabus पूरी करने की होड़ होगी. Teaching और learning में dichotomy होगी. एक टेक्स्ट बुक होगी और वो टेक्स्ट बुक रियलिटी से मिसअलाइंड होगी. और एक एग्जामिनेशन सिस्टम होगा. और फिर शायद हम किसी और कॉन्फ्रेंस में डिस्कशन करेंगे कि ECCE के लिए हाउ डू वी डू एग्जामिनेशन रिफॉर्म्स, as we have similar discussions for, let's say, board examination reforms. So we must flip it to say there are certain things that matter. It could be gross motor skill, fine motor skill. Ma'am gave wonderful example of matching, sorting, etc. Language acquisition, numeracy acquisition, basic expressions, social emotional development, etc. And then we take it upward, and that we use that as a pivot to also start to improve our school system. And let me use very simple example. In Punjab textbook, the chapter 1 is in English, my friends. So if the grade 1, the student who has just entered grade 1 is expected to read the word friend. If he or she could, I think it will be a different world if grade 1 child on day 1 could read the word friend. In fact, that's the headline. The next immediate word is learning objective. And this is for grade 1. And I don't even know why is the child's book even carrying what the learning objectives should be. There should be a corresponding teacher guide, which says that at the end of this chapter, the child must be able to do ABC. This is writing prompts, this is drawing prompt, this is a dancing prompt, this is a speaking prompt, this is a jumping prompt, and so on and so forth. And the child goes through those activities to develop a certain skill, which should be the intended outcome of the chapter. Not for the child to read the first 4 words as my friend's learning objective. And that speaks to the misaligned textbooks, that speaks to the misaligned priorities. So getting that right is one important. It's going to be hard, but getting that right is one important element. The second important element that we are increasingly leveraging, but not perhaps enough, is compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago, the young mothers whose children study in preschool / Anganwadis are more literate and more educated compared to 10, 20 years ago. That means they've had more number of years of schooling. Some of them even have obtained diploma / degrees, however good, bad, ugly that may be. But that speaks to their greater engagement with educational processes than 10, 20, 30 years ago for the young mothers. That means there's a lot of potential to tap into. And that's something, when we think of ECCE curriculum, we also need to integrate and consider how the Anganwadi workers can leverage the existence of young mothers who are more educated and have had higher number of years of schooling. So those 2 factors matter. And ultimately, some level of either resolution or greater convergence of systems and processes. And when I say convergence, I don't mean through committees. Because when governments want to do nothing, they set up committees. So convergence without, despite committees. But that convergence between the MWCD, the health, and the education, especially for the ECCE, those are the 3 things that I would say that matter the most.
Thank you, Dr. Kundu. I think ma'am wants to respond, so... Okay, fantastic. Ma'am?
Yeah. So I think I've not really seen Punjab textbooks, so I don't really have anything to comment on that. But see, why? So there are 2 kinds of things happening in the preschool area. Either we have downward extension. We have seen many videos where mothers are slapping their 3-year-old and saying कि ऐसे क्या है लिख यहाँ पे FOUR4 है ऐसा. So like either there is a lot of pressure to learn which is not age appropriate, or in the Anganwadis, that is what the researchers are telling us, that there is nothing happening, just few rhymes, few stories kind of a thing happening. So either there is absolute dilution or there is too much expectation. Age appropriate nahi ho raha. So therefore a curriculum is needed which sort of guides everybody who's working in this area to understand what is expected of a child. It's not learning ABCD, but it is talking about yourself, sharing your experiences, developing self-confidence in children, a lot of focus on oral language development. अगर बहुत बार बच्चे ने कहानी में friend word सुना है, तो I'm sure वो पढ़ सकता है class 1 में. So it's more about focusing on the oral language development, more focus on the phonemic awareness of the child. So बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं आप करेंगे अगर छोड़ देंगे लाज़ेफेयर तो कुछ भी नहीं होता है, ये भी हमने देख लिया है. तो करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क इज़ वेरी वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट. और लेकिन ये है कि करें क्या, तो वो पता चलता है अगर इफ़ यू हैव अ फ्रेमवर्क. सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट टू हैव अ फ्रेमवर्क.
मैम आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा अभी कि ये फ्रेमवर्क ज़रूरी होगा. एंड करिकुलम फोकसिंग ऑन ओरल लैंग्वेज वगैरह वगैरह मैम इज़ वेरी वेरी क्रिटिकल. आई थिंक आपसे पूछना चाहूँगा कि फॉर द कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग ऑफ आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स, एंड दिस अ क्वेश्चन टू बोथ ऑफ यू, एंड अनुराग आई विल कम बैक टू यू अगेन विद 2 questions. So ma'am, for you first, what kind of capacity building efforts do we need to do for Anganwadi workers to enable all of this that we are discussing? And ma'am, then we'll love your thoughts also on what NIPSED has also done and planning.
Before I answer this question of yours, I think again for the previous one, that is what, we've come out with Jadui Petara, which is a collection of learning teaching material where we are saying that these are the skills which are important. This is the material that you need to use. Not that ICDS did not give. ICDS has been giving an ECCE kit to the Anganwadi workers from times immemorial. And ICDS, like 1975, when ICDS was started, it was NCRT who designed all the learning teaching material, the training manuals, and a lot of material for the Anganwadis. So I think capacity building is very, very important. And so I see many organizations, many NGOs coming up with what NEP has recommended, that a 6-month certificate course for those who are 12th pass and a 1-year diploma course for those who are having 10th plus qualifications. So I think that is where, like we can give, and it has to be in a blended mode. So that is what is the recommendation of NEP. But yes, lot of short duration courses, which is actually the area of NIPSED. So ma'am can tell more about it, what they plan to do. But as far as the NEP recommendations are concerned, I think that is what they have talked about Anganwadi. So capacity building of Anganwadi is more like the NIPSED's work. So I would not really like that.
Capacity building, the need of the hour, and NIPSED has been engaged in capacity building of ICDS functionaries since ages. And as ma'am rightly said, it could be a 6-month diploma course, or I think so multiple. There should be diploma courses also. There should be any amount of training. It is endless. And the key to improvement is always training. And with regards to your National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, we have, based on the ECCE task force recommendations, we have chalked out a nationwide training of Anganwadi workers through the initiative which is Poshan B, Padhai B, PB. And that has started in May last year. Honorable Minister had inaugurated the program. And since then, we have been marching forward with Poshan B, Padhai B training. And I think so it is a historic moment that for the first time in the country, we have such a program where the entire, all the functionaries of ICDS, including DPOs, CDPOs, supervisors, Anganwadi workers, all of them are being trained for Poshan B, Padhai B on a developed facilitators guidebook, which we have got a training material, which is a standardized material. And this material, we had piloted it in 10 Utkarsh district so that we can standardize it. And the complete material which is being used for Poshan B, Padhai B is based on the recommendations of the ECCE task force. It is also having the major pointers from NEP 2020, NCFFS. And all of you will agree with me that nutrition and education go together, ma'am. So that is why, with Poshan and integrating all the important components which have been talked about since 1975, we are reinforcing those messages. And for the Padhai part, we are going with play-based pedagogy techniques to improve that in the Anganwadi centers. And one of the most important components of Poshan B, Padhai B is your early stimulation, which is not being talked much upon, and we don't have many documents in the country regarding that also, regarding 0 to 3 years stimulation, where we know that an Anganwadi worker or a health worker is supposed to make certain amount of visits. This is based on Saksham Anganwadi Guidelines 2018, where we have fixed the number of visits for an Anganwadi worker for the home visit. And earlier these visits were mainly for nutrition messages, but now we think it is high time that nutrition and education, both messages go hand in hand, so that even for 0 to 3 years age group, we have proper stimulation activities, which, the Anganwadi worker can make the parents, caregivers understand. We have the newly Palna scheme in place for the creche workers. For that also, we need a framework in place so that proper guidelines are given at the center. And regarding Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi, we have already started, as I told you, in May 2023. And as on date, we have already trained 5,700 master trainers. These include your CDPOs and supervisors who are already trained on Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi, who will in turn go to the field and impart 3-day Anganwadi workers training. And this is only a beginning. I don't believe that, a 3-day training program can change your entire, it's a social behavior change, communication when we talk about it. It's a long-term process, but it's always a beginning. And I think so this beginning, it has already sparked that this thing for ECCE across the country, and now I can, like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which has been so famous among the masses. Similarly, PB is also, in the air, and everybody is talking about it. I think so the importance of 0 to 6 years and the talk upon it is very, very important. Everybody now, 85% of brain development, if that thing is there everywhere, and the key message, if it reaches to the masses, that can bring a very big change. And Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi yet to continue. Already we have got a very huge budget which has been financed already from the Ministry of Finance. We have got a 476 crore budget for the program, and the Anganwadi workers training has to begin in the states. So I think so it's a good time for all of us to talk much upon it and take it further. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and congratulations on the launch of Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi. It's a fantastic and much-needed initiative. Dr. Kundu, I'll ask you for your thoughts on one thing right now. What can you tell us about the various models that you've seen work really well across the several states that you worked in, both in terms of capacity building of the Anganwadi workers? I can pass this to you. Both in terms of the capacity building efforts of the Anganwadi workers, the system itself, and also what level of convergence have you seen work really well, and if there are any best practices that we can adopt at a more central level.
First comment, in between the last I spoke and now I have not secured a PhD degree. Still not a doctor. I think two things, and in many sense, different experiments both at the states and some of the guidelines from the center also provide certain guidance. And let me use Punjab's example. We just did the FLN assessment of nearly about 12 lakh students, ranging from grade 3 to grade 8. And one of the things that stood out most to us was how the reading levels of the students in 4th and 5th, or even 3rd, were comparable with 6th, 7th, 8th, despite 2/3 years of lesser schooling. And so got curious as to what could the cause be. One could be it is a wrong administration of the tool itself, diagnostic tool. The other could be it's a data over-reporting, under-reporting, all of that. But we found that trend across the board. Now, all schools would be fudging the data, so that can't be the dominant explanation then. And the answer that we are increasingly coming to, we're not 100% sure, but seems to be a likely explanation, is that the students in today's primary in Punjab have had 2 years of additional schooling in the pre-primary. And the students in the upper primary in Punjab have not had the benefit of the 2 years of additional pre-primary. And that might be the most dominant or the most sort of big explanation as to why a 4th grader in reading and numeracy level seems to be doing better than a 6th grader for that matter, or a 7th grader for that matter, comparable. And that speaks to two things. And which has been Government of India's push, and different states now increasingly doing it, how do we introduce pre-primary in more and more schools? And not just introduce, because that merely takes an executive order, but also be able to deploy ECCE teachers for that. And the second is, while we do that, to the extent it's possible, can we co-locate Anganwadis within the school system? And let me again draw from Punjab. About 12,000 Anganwadis are co-located in about 8,400 primary schools. So that's about 1.5 Anganwadi on average per primary school. And while the way I'm going to frame may not like good news, but for some students it may well be. So what that does is, because the Anganwadis are co-located within the school and the school has an ECCE teacher, often the Anganwadi and the school's pre-primary students sit together. And that allows the Anganwadi worker to focus on the other 5 services she's able to provide while the ECCE teacher teaches full-time. Wherever logistically feasible, I understand what I'm saying may not be logistically feasible, it's a huge country, it's a diverse country, but wherever logistically feasible, can we also start to co-locate Anganwadis within the school system? So, and that's not just an experiment that has happened in Punjab, that's also an experiment that has happened in Punjab and many other parts of the country as well.
The study that you spoke about is actually very, very telling. I think we should, we'll include it, in the notes that we send out to all the speakers or the entire audience. We'll actually include that. I think it'll be relevant. Ma'am, did you want to say no? Okay. We wish actually we could go on for more. I think the clock is going up and down. It was earlier showing a higher time, but just in the interest of time, we'll actually pause here. There are honestly so many questions that I have. I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions as well. There's a lot to learn from your experience at the central state levels. But actually, I would like to end on a small question. And if you could, answer this in maybe 2 sentences maximum. Given this fascinating discussion, all of us here are here because we really care for our children, and we really believe that learning in the earliest years is very, very critical. As a country, according to you, where do we go next? How do we ensure that our children are learning and our children are developing in their earliest years? So if we can possibly end on a positive note for this, ma'am, if you want to start first, yeah.
Universalization of ECCE, MWCD is an integral part, Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi of course, but any program without proper monitoring doesn't work. So I think the key to ECCE is also having proper monitoring networks in place, so that all the programs what we actually implement doesn't make any sense without monitoring. So using tech-based monitoring, technology is there all around. So how do we make best use of technology? How do we make quicker ways of making children understand? How do we make parents more aware about the 0 to 6 years, so that it's not left to the Anganwadi or the school system as such for completely taking over ECCE. It is a complete matter of all the stakeholders involved. So I think that is the key forward for ECCE in the country.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think the government of India has been making a lot of effort in the last 2 years. After the NEP, we've had NCFFS. Then we have come out with, as you say, the teachers' trainer's handbook called Unmukh. We've come out with an activity book, integrated activity book for children called Anand. We've come out with Jadui Pitara, which has about 56 items. And for the information of everyone, this Jadui Pitara content is downloadable from Diksha. You can print it, you can download it, you can save it, use it in your training program. For each of the material, there are 56 items. For each of the material, how to use, we have got videos, so about 28 videos to demonstrate how these items of the Jadui Pitara need to be used with children. And of late, we have come out with E-Jadui Pitara, which has a lot of videos for the parents and for the teachers to, actually see and replicate the activities with children, which is age appropriate. We have come out with guidelines for parent and community engagement. We have come out with the textbooks, which are play-based, story-based, activity-based for foundational years 1 and 2. We are regularly doing capacity building of the master trainers on all of these, on NCFFS, on Jadui Pitara, on the new textbooks, and we continue to do that. So a lot of efforts are being done at the central level.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I think leverage technology, there is a potential for that. Leverage the young mothers who have had far more years of schooling than 10, 20, 30 years ago, today's young mothers. And three, make the administrative processes for Anganwadi workers easier, and a lot more can come out of that.
We saw a lot of claps when you said make the admin processes easier. But thank you. I think that was a fascinating discussion. Big thank you to all three of you. I know you have very busy schedules, so thank you for making time for this. And there's a lot to learn. I think the further sessions will actually delve even deeper into what you said, and we'll build on that. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.